fleeting glance across a crowded airport terminal. Two innocent faces mirroring a past he never knew, and a secret that will change a billionaire's perfectly controlled world forever. What happens when destiny refuses to be ignored, even for the most powerful among us? Before we dive into this captivating story of lost love and unexpected family, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and tell us in the comments if you believe in second chances. Valeria Santos adjusted her scarf, her grip firm on the small hands of Liliana and Catalina. The bustling international terminal in Barcelona was a symphony of chaos. Families saying goodbye, flight announcements echoing over loudspeakers, and a constant, hurried flow of passengers. But for Valeria, that commotion was just part of her daily rhythm. She'd learned to navigate through crowds with effortless grace, all while keeping a vigilant eye on her twin daughters. Her life as a single mother hadn't been easy. Every day was a battle. Between temporary jobs and sleepless nights caring for her girls, there was barely any time to think of herself. Yet, when she saw Liliana's and Catalina's bright smiles, she knew every sacrifice was worth it. Despite the difficulties, Valeria always strived to give her daughters the best. She'd promised them a small getaway, a rare treat to visit an old friend in a coastal town in northern Spain, something they couldn't often afford. This trip was a much-needed reprieve, a chance to disconnect, even if only for a couple of days. Liliana, the elder twin at 8, was relentlessly curious, always asking questions with insatiable wonder. Catalina, at just 6, was the dreamer, often lost in her own world of fairy tales. Both filled Valeria's life with purpose, but also with constant worries about their future. Meanwhile, at the opposite end of the terminal, Gabriel Serrano strode with determined purpose. His impeccable suit and gleaming leather briefcase clearly set him apart from the other passengers. Airport staff scurried to attend to him, as if his time was more valuable than anyone else's. Gabriel was a highly successful businessman, known for his ability to close multimillion-dollar deals with calculated coolness. He'd built his fortune from the ground up, or at least that's what he liked to tell the media. In reality, his success had come at the cost of emotional sacrifices and broken relationships. Gabriel didn't dwell on his past. For him, emotions were a luxury he couldn't afford. Everything in his life revolved around control of his companies, his employees, his public image. But deep down, there was an emptiness that no figure in his bank account could fill. This void, though he'd never admit it, haunted him in moments of solitude, those brief instants when the city lights failed to distract him. The contrast between Valeria and Gabriel couldn't be more evident. She, dressed in simple yet meticulously cared for clothes, focused on protecting and nurturing her daughters. He, surrounded by comfort and privilege, yet with an air of isolation that made him seem untouchable. Their worlds, separated by a social and emotional chasm, were about to collide in a way neither could ever have predicted. Do you believe some encounters are simply fate or just random chance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this intriguing contrast has piqued your interest, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to witness the moment their worlds collide. Valeria, distracted by a comment from Liliana, didn't notice that the girls had stopped to stare at a storefront filled with colorful toys. Liliana, Catalina, don't wander off, please, she called, a hint of exasperation in her voice. Just then, Gabriel walked past them, speaking on his phone. His firm, authoritative voice resonated, briefly capturing Valeria's attention. Years had passed since she had last seen him, but she recognized him instantly. Time seemed to slow as she watched Gabriel's retreating figure, still walking, utterly oblivious to her presence. A whirlwind of emotions engulfed her. Surprise, a surge of old anger, and something she preferred not to name, a painful nostalgia. Catalina tugged at her hand, pulling her back to reality. "Mama, can we go look at the toys?" she asked in her sweet little voice. "No, darling, we have to go to our boarding gate," Valeria replied quickly, trying to calm the accelerated beating of her heart. As they walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen, as if destiny was playing a cruel game with her. Gabriel, for his part, finished his call and glanced distractedly around, searching for a quiet lounge to wait for his flight. His gaze fleetingly crossed Valeria's, but he didn't recognize her immediately. However, something in her eyes felt vaguely familiar, like a buried memory struggling to surface. Before he could fully process the thought, his attention was captured by an assistant who approached, requesting his signature on some documents. Thus, amidst the bustling terminal, two lives that had taken drastically different paths were about to intertwine again. Neither of them imagined that this casual encounter would be the beginning of a series of events that would change their lives forever. Valeria hurried towards the boarding gate, trying to quell the unease that had bloomed in her chest. Despite the years, Gabriel's presence was as imposing as she remembered. He hadn't changed much, his hair slightly shorter, the lines of expression now marking his face, but the same authoritative, cold demeanor that used to disconcert her. As she walked, she tried to focus on her daughters, who were talking animatedly about the trip, oblivious to their mother's internal turmoil. However, fate seemed to have other plans. Upon reaching the boarding line, a deep, familiar voice resonated behind her. "Valeria!" Gabriel stood a few steps away, an expression of disbelief on his face. She felt her body go cold. She couldn't help it. Seeing him up close, unexpectedly, made memories flood her mind, bringing with them emotions she had tried to bury for years. "Gabriel," she replied dryly, slowly turning towards him. She couldn't help but look into his eyes, those same eyes that used to gaze at her with tenderness, but which were now filled with bewilderment. "It's you," he said, as if confirming something his mind couldn't quite process. His gaze quickly shifted to the two little girls clinging to Valeria's hands. The color drained from his face as he noticed the undeniable resemblance. "Are they?" Gabriel left the question unfinished, but the meaning was chillingly clear. Valeria pressed her lips together, feeling a mix of anger and vulnerability. She had dreaded this moment for years, but now that it was upon her, she had no choice but to face it. "Yes, Gabriel. They are your daughters," she responded firmly, though her voice trembled slightly at the end. Gabriel recoiled a step, as if the impact of her words had struck him physically. His eyes darted between Valeria and the girls, searching for any sign that this wasn't real, but the resemblance was undeniable. Liliana and Catalina looked at him with innocent curiosity, not fully understanding what was happening. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Gabriel asked, his voice tense, though he struggled to maintain his composure. "I had a right to know. To know." Valeria let out a bitter laugh. "What would you have done with that information, Gabriel? When you left me, you were so busy building your empire that you didn't even notice what was happening to me. Do you think it would have changed anything if I had told you?" Gabriel opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. He knew she was right, at least in part. Back then, his ambition had consumed him completely. He had ended things with Valeria abruptly, convinced that a relationship would be an obstacle on his path to success. He had never stopped to consider the consequences of his actions. "This isn't about me, Valeria. This is about them." Gabriel gestured towards the girls, who now clung to their mother, sensing the tension in the air. "I have a right to know them. They have a right to know who I am." Valeria sighed, tired of carrying this weight alone, but also reluctant to allow Gabriel to simply waltz into her daughters' lives. "It's not that simple, Gabriel. You don't just appear out of nowhere and suddenly decide to be their father. They don't know you, and I don't know if I can trust you not to disappoint them." Gabriel took a step closer, softening his expression. "Give me a chance, Valeria, please. I can't change the past, but I can try to make things right now. Let me get to know them." Before Valeria could respond, a voice over the loudspeaker announced the start of boarding for their flight. It was her perfect escape, a way to postpone this emotionally exhausting conversation. "We have to go," she said firmly, taking Liliana's and Catalina's hands. "Valeria, wait." Gabriel placed a hand on her arm, but quickly released it, aware that he shouldn't pressure her. "Tell me how I can find you. I'm not letting this go." She hesitated for a moment, but finally pulled a piece of paper from her bag and wrote down a phone number. Call me in a few days, but I don't promise anything, Gabriel. This isn't just about you and me. Now it's about them. Gabriel nodded, holding the paper as if it were the last hope he had. He watched as Valeria and the girls walked away towards the boarding gate, his mind flooded with questions and regrets. He had often imagined how it would be to reunite with Valeria, but he had never expected something so impactful, so utterly life-changing. As the plane took off, Valeria looked out the window, trying to calm her racing mind. She knew this encounter would change their lives, but she didn't yet know if it would be for better or for worse. For the first time in years, her heart was filled with profound uncertainty. On the other hand, Gabriel remained in the terminal, lost in thought. The images of Liliana and Catalina kept replaying in his mind, reminding him that he could no longer ignore his past. It was only the beginning of a challenging path, but also one filled with possibilities he had never imagined. What do you think is the true reason Valeria kept the twins a secret for so long? Do you believe Gabriel will truly commit to being a father, or is this just another impulse? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this powerful reunion has you gripped, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their dramatic story. Gabriel spent the next few days engulfed in a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. He couldn't shake the faces of Liliana and Catalina from his mind. They were so much like him, it felt like seeing a reflection of a past he never knew. The conversation with Valeria had stirred something deep within him, something he'd buried for years. Guilt, a longing he hadn't recognized, and an unfamiliar desire to rectify his past mistakes. Finally, he mustered the courage and dialed the number Valeria had given him. Each ring seemed to stretch into an eternity until he finally heard her voice on the other end. "Hello?" Valeria said cautiously, her tone neutral, almost cold, but Gabriel detected a slight tension in her words. "Valeria, it's me, Gabriel," he replied, trying to sound calmer than he felt. "I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed at the airport. I know you probably don't trust me, but I want to show you that I'm willing to do things right. I want to meet my daughters." A long silence followed. Gabriel could picture her, debating internally, wrestling between the resentment of the past and the possibility of giving Liliana and Catalina something they never had: a father. Finally, Valeria sighed. "All right," she said with reluctance. "You can come to meet them, but under my conditions. This isn't for you, Gabriel. It's for them. If at any point I feel you're playing with their emotions or that you're not truly committed, you'll leave immediately." Gabriel nodded, even though he knew she couldn't see him. "I understand. I won't fail them. Thank you for giving me this chance. Do you think Valeria's conditions are fair? What would you do in her shoes?" Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of second chances is pulling at your heartstrings, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to see how it unfolds. A few days later, Gabriel arrived at the small apartment where Valeria lived with the girls. The place was modest but warm, its walls adorned with children's drawings and simple, well-kept furniture. As he stepped through the door, Gabriel felt a pang of humility. It was a stark contrast to his own world of luxury and opulence. Liliana and Catalina were sitting on the sofa, watching a children's show. When Valeria explained that a friend was coming to visit, both looked up with curiosity. Seeing Gabriel enter, their small faces lit up with a mix of confusion and wonder. "Hello," Gabriel said, trying to sound relaxed, though he was incredibly nervous inside. "You must be Liliana and Catalina." The girls nodded, observing him intently. Liliana, always the more inquisitive, was the first to speak. "Who are you?" Gabriel looked at Valeria, seeking her approval before answering. She gave him a slight nod. "I'm Gabriel. I'm a friend of your mom's. I wanted to meet you and your sister." Catalina, shyer, hid slightly behind Liliana but didn't take her eyes off Gabriel. There was something in their innocent gaze, a spark of curiosity, that made him feel an immediate, profound connection. "Why didn't you ever come before?" Liliana asked with the frankness typical of children. Valeria pressed her lips together, clearly uncomfortable with the question, but she let Gabriel handle the situation. "It's complicated. Gabriel responded, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes, and I made many. But I'm here now because I want to know you. And I want to show you that I can be a part of your life if you let me. Liliana looked at him for a moment, evaluating him with a maturity that seemed too advanced for her age. Finally, she nodded. Okay. But you have to be good to Catalina and me. I promise I will, Gabriel said, feeling a mix of relief and an immense sense of responsibility. He knew these words were only the beginning. He would have to back them up with actions. Valeria served juice and cookies on the small dining table, trying to lighten the mood. While the girls ate, Gabriel tried to integrate himself into the conversation. He asked about their interests, their classes at school, and what they liked to do in their free time. Liliana responded with enthusiasm about her art classes, while Catalina shyly spoke about her love for fairy tales. Slowly, the tension began to dissipate. The girls seemed to feel more comfortable, and Gabriel, though aware that this was just the first step, allowed himself to enjoy the moment. Seeing them laugh together as they recounted anecdotes from their day filled a void he'd carried unknowingly for years. However, not everything was easy. Valeria remained in the background, carefully observing every interaction. Although she had agreed to give him a chance, her distrust was still there, palpable in her guarded gaze. When the visit came to an end, Gabriel knelt to be at the girl's level. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'd love to see you again soon if that's okay with you. Liliana nodded with a smile, while Catalina, still shy, looked at him but said nothing. However, when he extended his hand to say goodbye, she leaned in and gave him a brief hug before running back to the sofa. The unexpected gesture deeply moved Gabriel. As he left the apartment, he promised Valeria that he would do everything possible to earn her trust and that of the girls. Walking towards his car, he knew that that small hug meant more than any achievement he'd ever had in his life. It was a beginning, and he was determined not to waste it. What do you think of this first interaction between Gabriel and his daughters? Do you believe his sincerity is genuine? Share your raw thoughts in the comments. If this story of a family finding its way is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their dramatic story. That night, Gabriel couldn't sleep. Lying in his bed, the dimness of the room enveloping him, his mind wouldn't stop replaying every detail of his meeting with Valeria and the girls. Catalina's shy hug had awakened something in him, an emotion he couldn't quite explain. It was as if a door that had remained closed for years had suddenly swung open, releasing memories and feelings he himself had chosen to ignore. Gabriel knew he had to confront his past if he truly wanted to move forward. He remembered the nights when, exhausted from work, he would ignore Valeria's calls, convinced there would always be time later. That later never came, and now the images of Liliana and Catalina weighed on him like a debt he had to repay. Valeria, with her warmth and contagious laughter, had been a refuge amidst his relentless ambition. But as his businesses grew, so did his priorities, and Valeria was relegated to the background until, finally, he left her. He sat on the edge of his bed, running his hands over his face. He had been a coward. He had fled when things got complicated, thinking that work and success could fill the voids he'd left behind. Now, seeing Liliana and Catalina, he understood how much he had lost. The next day, Gabriel decided he needed to talk to someone about everything that was happening. Although he was a reserved man, there was one person in his life who had always been his moral compass. His friend and partner, Ignacio. He called him, and they agreed to meet at a cafe near the office. When Gabriel arrived, Ignacio was already there, a cup of coffee in hand and a curious expression. "This must be important for you to make me come on a Monday morning," Ignacio said with a smile. Gabriel sighed as he sat down. "It is. I need your advice." Ignacio raised an eyebrow, surprised. The great Gabriel Serrano needs advice? This is serious. Gabriel couldn't help a small, wry smile, but his tone remained grave. "I found Valeria." Ignacio's smile vanished. He'd heard that name before, in the days when Gabriel still spoke enthusiastically about her. "Valeria? Your ex? What happened?" Gabriel told him everything. The encounter at the airport, the shocking revelation that he had 2 daughters, and his recent visit to the small apartment where they lived. As he spoke, Ignacio listened in silence, his expression shifting from surprise to profound understanding. "So, you have 2 daughters?" Ignacio said when Gabriel finished. "And you never knew?" "No," Gabriel responded, feeling the crushing weight of that single word. "I never knew, and now I don't know where to begin. I want to make things right, but I don't know if I can." Ignacio leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Gabriel, you've always been good at business, but this isn't a deal you can close with money or power. This is personal. If you want to be a part of their lives, you need to prove you're committed, not just to them, but also to yourself." Gabriel nodded slowly. He knew Ignacio was right. He had spent his entire life building an image of success, but he had never truly faced the real problems he had left behind. "And how do I do that? How do I prove I can change?" Ignacio looked at him intently. "Start with Valeria. If you want to win those girls over, you first need to prove to their mother that you are trustworthy. That means being honest, being present, and above all, listening. This isn't about you, Gabriel. It's about them. Do you believe Gabriel is truly ready to change? Or is this just another one of his calculated moves? What would you advise him to do next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of reckoning and redemption is captivating you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next crucial step. Ignacio's words resonated in Gabriel's mind all day. That same afternoon, he picked up the phone and called Valeria. His tone was calm but resolute. "Can we talk? Just you and me. There are things I need to tell you." Valeria hesitated at first, but finally agreed. They met at a park near her home, a neutral place where neither of them would feel vulnerable. Gabriel arrived first and sat on a bench, watching the children play in the recreation area. It was a stark reminder of all he had missed. Valeria arrived shortly after, dressed in simple but elegant clothes. There was a calculated distance in her expression, as if she were prepared for anything he might say. "What do you want, Gabriel?" she asked directly, her voice guarded. "I want to apologize," he said bluntly. "Not just for what happened at the airport, but for everything. For leaving you, for not having been there for you, for them. I know nothing I say can change the past, but I want you to know that I am truly sorry." Valeria crossed her arms, evaluating him. "And why now, Gabriel? Years have passed. What changed?" Gabriel took a deep breath before responding. "They changed everything. Seeing them, I realized how much I had lost and how much I want to regain. I'm not here to fix things overnight, but I want to try if you'll allow me." The silence that followed was heavy, but finally, Valeria nodded slowly. "It won't be easy. You have a lot to prove, but if you're truly willing, we can try. For them." Gabriel felt a wave of relief and determination. He knew this was only the beginning, but for the first time in years, he felt he was on the right path. He was going to fight for Liliana, for Catalina, and perhaps for something more. The sky was clear that afternoon, and the park where Valeria had brought the girls seemed livelier than ever. Liliana and Catalina darted among the swings and slides, their laughter echoing, while Valeria watched them from a nearby bench. Beside her, Gabriel sat, visibly nervous. He wasn't accustomed to being outside his comfort zone, but today, he was willing to set aside his pride and show that he could be a part of his daughters' lives. "Thank you for letting me be here," Gabriel said, breaking the comfortable silence that enveloped them. His gaze was fixed on the girls, but his words were for Valeria. "I'm not doing it for you," she responded, not taking her eyes off her daughters. "I'm doing it for them. They want to know you even if they don't say it openly. But I want you to understand something, Gabriel. This isn't a game. If you come into their lives and then decide to leave, you will hurt them profoundly." Gabriel nodded, accepting the weight of those words. "I know, and I don't plan to leave. I'm here to stay." Valeria looked at him for a moment, trying to find sincerity in his expression. There was something different about him, something she didn't recognize from the man who had left her years ago. Perhaps it was guilt, or maybe a genuine desire for redemption, but she wasn't ready to lower her guard. Not yet. Catalina, with her boundless energy, ran toward them, a small yellow flower clutched in her hand. She shyly extended it toward Gabriel. "It's for you," she said with a timid smile. Gabriel took the flower carefully, as if it were a precious object. "Thank you, Catalina. It's the most beautiful flower I've ever received." Catalina giggled and ran back to the play area, while Liliana approached more slowly. The elder of the two girls had always been more observant, analyzing every situation before acting. She stood in front of Gabriel, arms crossed and a serious expression. "Why didn't you ever come before?" she asked, her voice small but laden with a curiosity that Gabriel knew he had to answer carefully. Gabriel looked at Valeria before responding, seeking her approval. She nodded slightly, allowing him to speak. "That's a good question, Liliana," he began. "The truth is, I made a mistake. I didn't know what to do at the time, and I walked away when I shouldn't have. But now I want to fix things if you and Catalina let me." Liliana looked at him intently for a few seconds before shrugging. "Okay, but if you hurt Catalina, I won't forgive you." Gabriel felt a lump in his throat hearing those words. It was incredible how a girl of barely 8 years old could have such a strong sense of protection towards her sister. "I promise I won't hurt either of you. Never." Valeria watched the interaction with a mix of emotions. She hadn't expected Gabriel to win the girls over so quickly, but it seemed there was something genuine about him that attracted them. Still, she knew that building a relationship with them would be a slow and delicate process. "What do you think of Liliana's protective nature towards her sister? And is Gabriel's sincerity enough to overcome years of absence?" Share your insights in the comments below. If this story of rebuilding is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next steps in their complex journey. After a while, Valeria suggested they go for ice cream. The girls, excited by the idea, quickly put on their shoes and took their mother's hands. To Valeria's surprise, Catalina also took Gabriel's hand, eagerly pulling him towards the nearby ice cream parlor. "I want chocolate," Liliana declared as they walked. "I want strawberry," Catalina added, looking at Gabriel as if expecting his opinion. "Strawberry is an excellent choice," Gabriel said with a smile, surprised at how natural it felt to be with them. In the ice cream parlor, the girls sat together at a small table, enjoying their ice creams. Gabriel stood beside Valeria, observing them with a faint smile. "They're incredible," he said in a low voice. "I don't know how you did it, Valeria. Raising them alone. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been." Valeria looked at him with a mixture of pride and weariness. "It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. They are worth it." Gabriel nodded, aware that those words carried a history of sacrifices he hadn't shared. "I want to help you now. I want to be there for them and for you if you let me." Valeria sighed. "Gabriel, it's not that simple. This isn't just about wanting. It's about proving it, about being present, about being constant. Words are easy, but actions are what matter." "I know," he responded sincerely, "and I'm ready to prove it." The afternoon ended with the girls happy and full of energy. Gabriel accompanied them back to the apartment, and as he said goodbye, he knelt to be at their level. "Thank you for spending the day with me. Can we do it again soon?" he asked. Liliana nodded with enthusiasm, while Catalina, shyer, gave him another small hug before entering the apartment. Valeria watched from the doorway as Gabriel walked away. There was something different about him, something that seemed real, but she still wasn't sure if she could fully trust him. The only thing she knew was that, for now, she was willing to give him a chance, and not for him, but for the girls who deserved a father in their lives. The sun began to set as Valeria sat on the small sofa in her apartment, watching Liliana and Catalina settle into their room with the books and toys they'd brought from the park. The girls' laughter filled the place with a warmth that had always given her strength to carry on. However, that evening her mind was divided. Despite Gabriel's smiles and sincere gestures, a part of her couldn't lower her guard. Valeria knew Gabriel well. She had witnessed his unrestrained ambition, seen the man who prioritized his career above all else. Now he claimed to have changed, but was that enough? Could she truly trust this new version of Gabriel? More importantly, Could she risk allowing the girls, who were already growing fond of him, to be hurt if he decided to disappear again? That night, while Liliana and Catalina slept peacefully, Valeria remained seated at her kitchen table, lost in thought. She held a cup of tea in her hands, but the liquid was already cold. The chime of her cell phone jolted her from her reverie. It was a message from Gabriel. "Thanks for today. The girls are wonderful, and you're as strong as ever. If there's anything I can do to help, tell me." Valeria frowned, reading the message several times. There was something in his words that seemed genuine, but she still couldn't shake her mistrust. Gabriel had an innate ability to say the right thing, to persuade people with his charisma. And what if this was all just another performance? The next day, Valeria decided she needed to talk to someone she fully trusted. Her younger sister, Andrea. Andrea had always been her confidant, the person who had supported her when Gabriel left and when she discovered she was pregnant. They met at a cafe near Andrea's work, a quiet spot where they could talk without interruption. "So, what's up with Gabriel?" Andrea asked after Valeria explained the situation. Her tone was full of curiosity, but also concern. "He wants to be a part of the girls' lives," Valeria replied, absently stirring her coffee. "He says he's changed, that he's willing to do things right this time, but I don't know if I can believe him." Andrea observed her in silence for a moment before speaking. "Look, Val, I know Gabriel hurt you deeply, but I also know you can't carry this burden all by yourself forever. If he truly wants to be a part of Liliana's and Catalina's lives, maybe it's worth giving him a chance. But do it at your own pace, not his." Valeria sighed, feeling her sister was right, though accepting that truth didn't make it any easier. "I don't want the girls to suffer, Andrea. If he leaves again, I don't know how I could explain that to them." "Then make sure he doesn't," Andrea replied firmly. "Set boundaries, test his commitment. If he really has changed, he'll prove it over time. And if not, at least you'll know you did the right thing by protecting them." That conversation gave Valeria some clarity, but Andrea wasn't entirely convinced. "Don't let the girls lower their guard until he proves he's not the same man as before," she warned. "Trust your instincts, but remain cautious." Her sister's words resonated in her mind as she watched her daughters talk excitedly about Gabriel that night. If there was a possibility that they could have a relationship with their father, she had a responsibility to explore it, as long as it was on her terms. What do you think of Andrea's advice? Is it wise to test someone's commitment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of cautious hope and lingering doubts has you invested, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their journey. That same afternoon, Gabriel called to ask if he could take the girls to the movies that weekend. Valeria, though still doubtful, accepted, but with a condition. "I'm coming too," she said, her tone making it clear she wasn't willing to negotiate. Gabriel didn't seem surprised. "Sounds good. It'll be fun for everyone." Saturday arrived, and Gabriel picked them up in his sleek, dark luxury car that contrasted with the simplicity of Valeria's neighborhood. The girls were excited, especially Liliana, who couldn't stop talking about the movie they were going to see. Catalina, as always, was more reserved, but her shy smile betrayed her enthusiasm. During the movie, Gabriel sat between the girls, sharing popcorn and quietly answering their whispered questions. Valeria observed them from her seat, still trying to process the scene. There was something so natural in the way Gabriel interacted with them that it almost made her forget the man who had abandoned her years ago. But just as she began to relax, she remembered the days she cried alone, wondering how she was going to raise two girls without any support. After the movie, Gabriel took them to a nearby pizzeria for dinner. Liliana and Catalina were radiant, talking non-stop about their favorite scenes. Valeria, though quieter, watched everything intently, evaluating Gabriel's every gesture, every word he spoke. When they finally returned to the apartment, Liliana hugged Gabriel before going inside, but hesitated a moment before speaking. "Thank you for everything, Gabriel," she said with a timid smile, avoiding using the word daddy for now. Gabriel froze for a second, clearly moved, but managed to maintain his composure. "You're welcome, princess," he responded, his voice full of tenderness. Valeria, standing at the door, observed the scene in silence. There was something in that interaction that gave her a glimmer of hope, although her heart remained divided. Perhaps, just perhaps, Gabriel was beginning to show that he deserved a second chance. But there was still a long way to go. Valeria's routine began to change slowly. Since Gabriel had reappeared, the girls talked about him constantly. Liliana would mention how her daddy made her laugh, while Catalina, with her characteristic shyness, would simply smile whenever Gabriel was part of the conversation. Valeria listened in silence, trying not to get carried away by the girls' excitement. Although Gabriel was making a genuine effort, she knew she had to remain alert. One rainy afternoon, as Valeria finished washing the dishes, she received an unexpected call from Liliana and Catalina's school. The principal, her voice filled with concern, informed her that Liliana had had a minor accident during recess and needed to be picked up immediately. Valeria, without hesitation, dropped everything and prepared to leave. However, just as she was about to step out the door, her phone rang again. It was Gabriel. For a moment, she hesitated to answer, knowing that handling this alone was what she had always done. But something inside her told her that this time, she should accept help. "What happened?" Gabriel asked, sensing the tension in her voice. "Liliana fell at school. I'm going to pick her up right now," Valeria replied, her voice hurried. "I'm coming with you," Gabriel said without a moment's hesitation. Valeria wanted to refuse, but Gabriel's tone was firm. "All right," she conceded. "But hurry." In less than 10 minutes, Gabriel appeared at her door, clearly worried. The rain was still falling heavily, but he didn't seem to care. They got into his car and drove towards the school in silence. Gabriel glanced sideways at Valeria, noticing her palpable concern, but he decided not to say anything. He knew words wouldn't do much in that moment. What mattered was simply being present. When they arrived, Liliana was sitting in the infirmary with a small bandage on her knee, her expression a mix of pain and discomfort. Upon seeing Valeria, her face lit up, but when she noticed Gabriel behind her, her eyes sparkled with surprise and joy. "Daddy, you came," she said with a smile, momentarily forgetting her pain. "Of course," Gabriel responded, kneeling beside her. "How are you, champ?" "It hurts a little, but I'm okay," Liliana replied, proud of her bravery. Valeria watched the scene with a mix of emotions. Seeing Gabriel there, worried about his daughter, stirred contradictory feelings within her. There was something profoundly human about him in that moment, something she hadn't seen in years. Do you believe Gabriel's presence in a crisis is enough to start mending years of absence? What would you do in Valeria's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this raw, emotional moment has you captivated, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their dramatic story. The nurse explained that the fall wasn't serious but recommended Liliana rest at home for a few days. Gabriel thanked her for the information as he carefully lifted Liliana into his arms to carry her to the car. Catalina, who was also at school, followed them, clinging to Valeria's hand. On the way home, Liliana rested in the back seat, with Catalina beside her, watching over her like a personal protector. Gabriel drove calmly, casting constant glances in the rearview mirror to make sure Liliana was comfortable. Valeria, sitting in the passenger seat, noticed the shift in him. But as she watched the rainy landscape blur past, she couldn't help but remember the lonely nights when she had faced all this without help. Now, with Gabriel by her side, she felt relief, but also a persistent fear of trusting too much. This wasn't the selfish, distant man she had known. Something in Gabriel seemed to have changed, and that unsettled her as much as it relieved her. When they arrived at the apartment, Gabriel insisted on staying to ensure Liliana was comfortable. Valeria, though initially reluctant, agreed. They prepared a small nest for Liliana on the sofa, with pillows and a soft blanket. Catalina sat by her side, holding her hand, while Gabriel took charge of bringing water and something to eat. "Are you always so bossy?" Valeria asked, crossing her arms, watching him move around the kitchen as if he were in his own home. Gabriel smiled faintly. Only when it comes to my daughters. The word daughters resonated in the air, laden with meaning. Valeria didn't respond, but her soft gaze indicated that, although she wouldn't admit it aloud, Gabriel's actions were beginning to touch something deep inside her. That night, while Liliana slept soundly on the sofa, Gabriel sat in a nearby chair, quietly observing her. Valeria, exhausted, sat beside him, unsure what to say. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was laden with unexpressed thoughts and shared burdens. "Thank you for being here," Valeria said finally, breaking the silence. "I don't know how I would have handled this alone." "You don't have to handle it alone," Gabriel responded with a sincerity that took her by surprise. "It's my duty. I know I've been absent for too long, but I'm here now, and I don't plan to leave." Valeria looked at him sideways, searching for any trace of doubt or insincerity in his words, but found none. Gabriel seemed to be a completely different person, someone willing to fight for them. However, scars still remained in her heart, wounds that couldn't heal overnight. "Gabriel, this isn't easy for me," she admitted finally. "I want to believe in you, for the girls, but I'm also afraid. I don't want you to disappear again." "I know," Gabriel said, nodding slowly, "and I'm going to prove to you that I won't. Not with words, but with actions." Valeria sighed, letting his words sink in. Although her heart was still filled with doubts, something changed that night. Gabriel had taken another step to earn her trust, and though the road was still long, she began to see the possibility of a future where they could rebuild something together. The morning after Liliana's accident arrived with an air of calm, but Valeria knew the emotions of the previous night still pulsed within her. As she prepared breakfast, she watched Liliana on the sofa, who seemed to have entirely forgotten her fall while drawing with Catalina. For the first time in a long while, Valeria allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where Gabriel was truly present for them. Yet, that idea still wrestled with her protective instincts. Gabriel arrived later with a bag filled with fresh fruits, juices, and a stack of children's books for the girls. Liliana and Catalina greeted him with wide smiles, excited by the gifts. Valeria, meanwhile, watched him intently. Although every gesture seemed genuine, she couldn't help but question if it was all too good to be true. "How are you, champ?" Gabriel asked, kneeling beside Liliana, affectionately stroking her hair. "Better," she responded, proudly showing him a drawing she had made. "Look, it's of us in the park." Gabriel took the drawing and looked at it closely. There was something in that simple image that filled his chest with an unfamiliar warmth. "It's beautiful, Liliana. I promise we'll have many more days like that." From the kitchen, Valeria heard his words and felt something stir within her. She couldn't deny that Gabriel was making a real effort, but would it be enough to erase the years of absence? After breakfast, Valeria suggested the girls rest for a while. While Liliana and Catalina were occupied watching a movie in their room, Gabriel and Valeria were left alone in the living room. There was a palpable tension in the air, a mixture of gratitude and distrust that neither of them quite knew how to address. "Thank you for everything you've done for them," Valeria said finally, breaking the silence. "I know they're happy to have you here." "It's the least I can do," Gabriel responded, crossing his hands over his knees. "I want to be here for them, and for you if you let me." Valeria looked at him with a serious gaze. "Gabriel, this isn't just a matter of wanting. Years have passed. You weren't there when they were born, when they took their first steps, or when they spoke their first words. You can't just appear and pretend everything is fine." "I know," Gabriel admitted, lowering his gaze. "I can't get back the lost time, but I can do my best with the time we have now. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you I'm here to stay." Valeria sighed, feeling the weight of her own emotions. "It's not that simple. I've been mother and father to them all this time, and even if they accept you, I still have my doubts." Gabriel nodded, understanding the profound depth of her words. "I don't expect you to trust me immediately. I just want you to give me the opportunity to prove I've changed." "And how do I know this isn't just temporary?" Valeria asked, her voice tinged with pain. "How do I know you won't disappear again when things get difficult?" Gabriel remained silent for a moment, as if searching for the right words. Because I've learned what truly matters, Valeria. For years, I thought success was everything, but the truth is, none of that means anything if I don't have my family. I can't change the past, but I can decide my future, and I want that future to be with you all. Valeria looked into his eyes, searching for a trace of doubt or insincerity, but all she saw was raw honesty. Although she wasn't ready to completely lower her guard, something inside her began to soften. "All right," she said finally. "I'll give you that chance, but it will be on my terms, Gabriel. If at any point I feel you're not committed, I won't hesitate to keep you away from them." Gabriel nodded, accepting the condition without hesitation. "I won't disappoint them or you." What profound impact do you think Gabriel's unwavering commitment will have on Valeria? Is this a true turning point? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of an arduous path to trust is captivating you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next part of their dramatic journey. The days that followed were filled with small steps forward. Gabriel began visiting the girls more frequently, taking them to the park, helping them with their homework, and listening to their stories. Valeria watched from a distance, analyzing his every move, but little by little, she began to feel more comfortable with his presence. One Saturday afternoon, Gabriel arrived at the apartment with a large box that immediately piqued the girl's curiosity. "What's in there, Daddy?" Liliana asked, running towards him with a smile. Gabriel placed the box on the table and smiled mysteriously. "It's a surprise, but only if Mama agrees." Valeria raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms as she observed the scene. "What are you planning, Gabriel?" "It's a family activity," he responded calmly, opening the box to reveal painting supplies, brushes, and canvases. "I thought we could spend the afternoon painting together. Liliana always talks about her love for art, and Catalina seems interested too." Valeria couldn't help but smile at the idea. Although she remained cautious, there was nothing wrong with a creative afternoon with her daughters. "All right," she said finally, "but I hope you don't plan to make a mess everywhere." "I promise I'll clean up," Gabriel replied, winking at her. The girls cheered excitedly and quickly sat around the table as Gabriel organized the materials. Valeria, at first, stayed to the side, observing how Gabriel patiently explained how to use the brushes and mix the colors. However, the laughter and contagious energy of her daughters eventually drew her in. "Are you going to join us, Mama?" Catalina asked with a hopeful look. Valeria hesitated for a moment, but finally sat down next to them. "All right, but don't laugh at my drawing." The rest of the afternoon passed amidst laughter, paint smudges, and moments of complicity. Liliana painted a landscape full of bright colors, while Catalina created an enchanted forest filled with flowers and imaginary animals. Gabriel, surprisingly talented, painted a portrait of the girls playing in the park, which drew an exclamation of awe from Liliana. "Daddy, it's beautiful," she said, hugging him enthusiastically. Valeria, for her part, painted an abstract scene representing a sunset. Although she didn't say it aloud, there was something therapeutic about letting the colors flow, as if her emotions were being poured onto the canvas. When they finished, Gabriel helped clean up while the girls proudly showed off their creations. Valeria watched Gabriel from the kitchen, feeling something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. Gratitude, his constant presence, his patience with the girls, and his genuine effort to be involved, were beginning to dismantle the barriers she had built over so many years. That night, after Liliana and Catalina were asleep, Gabriel and Valeria sat together on the sofa. There was a comfortable silence between them, finally broken by Valeria. "Thank you for today," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "The girls were happy, and I was happy." Gabriel looked at her with a gentle smile, feeling his efforts were finally bearing fruit. "Me too. You don't know how much it means to me to be here with you all." Valeria observed him, allowing herself to lower her guard a little more. "Gabriel," she began, her voice tinged with vulnerability, "I know I haven't always been fair to you, but I hope you understand why. I've been alone with the girls for a long time, and learning to trust you isn't something I can do overnight. I understand, he responded with sincerity, nodding slowly. And I don't expect you to. I just want you to know I'm here to stay, no matter what. Valeria looked at him, searching for any trace of doubt or insincerity in his words, but she found none. Gabriel seemed to be a different man, one who was willing to fight for them. Yet, scars remained in her heart, wounds that couldn't heal overnight. What do you think is the hardest part about learning to trust again after being hurt? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story of rebuilding is touching your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for the next steps in their complex journey. Gabriel, this isn't easy for me, she admitted finally. I want to believe in you, for the girls, but I'm also afraid. I don't want you to disappear again. Gabriel remained silent for a moment, as if searching for the right words. Because I've learned what truly matters, Valeria. For years, I thought success was everything, but the truth is, none of that means anything if I don't have my family. I can't change the past, but I can decide my future, and I want that future to be with you all. Valeria looked into his eyes, searching for a trace of doubt or insincerity, but the only thing she saw was raw honesty. Although she wasn't ready to completely lower her guard, something in her interior began to soften. All right, she said finally. I'll give you that chance, but it will be on my terms, Gabriel. If at any point I feel you're not committed, I won't hesitate to keep you away from them. Gabriel nodded, accepting the condition without hesitation. I won't disappoint them or you. The days that followed were filled with small steps forward. Gabriel began visiting the girls more frequently, taking them to the park, helping them with their homework, and listening to their stories. Valeria observed from a distance, analyzing his every move, but little by little, she began to feel more comfortable with his presence. One afternoon, while Gabriel helped Catalina build a block castle on the living room floor, Liliana sat next to Valeria on the sofa. Mama, Daddy is going to stay with us forever? She asked with her innocent voice. The question left Valeria speechless for a moment. She looked at Gabriel, who was completely focused on making Catalina laugh, and then looked back at her daughter. I hope so, darling, she responded softly. But we have to give him time to prove it. Liliana nodded, apparently satisfied with that answer, and ran to join her sister and her father on the floor. Valeria watched them with a mix of hope and fear. There was much that remained unspoken, many wounds that had not yet healed, but for the first time in years, she felt that perhaps they could begin to build something together. The path wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to try, not for Gabriel but for the girls who deserved a family they could trust, and perhaps, just perhaps, also for herself. Here's part 9 of your story. Part 9. The Journey to Forever. The routine slowly began to adjust in Valeria's home with Gabriel's steady presence. Liliana and Catalina, increasingly comfortable with their father, eagerly awaited his visits. Valeria, though still cautious, began to accept that her life no longer revolved exclusively around the girls. Gabriel had become a constant figure, a pillar that, though still fragile, seemed willing to strengthen with time. However, everything took an unexpected turn one morning when Liliana and Catalina woke up with fevers. Valeria, accustomed to handling these situations alone, immediately sprang into action. She gave them medicine, wrapped them on the sofa, and prepared warm broths to keep them hydrated. But as the day progressed, the girls' temperatures didn't drop, and Liliana began to complain of a sharp pain in her abdomen. Alarmed, Valeria called the pediatrician, who recommended she take them to the hospital immediately. While she tried to organize herself, her phone rang. It was Gabriel. For a moment, she hesitated to answer, knowing that handling this alone was what she had always done. But something in her interior told her that this time, she should accept help. Gabriel, it's not a good time, she said, trying to remain calm, but her voice betrayed her concern. What's wrong? Are the girls okay? He asked with urgency. Liliana and Catalina are sick. Liliana has a high fever and abdominal pain. The pediatrician said to take them to the hospital. I'm coming with you, Gabriel said without hesitation. Valeria wanted to refuse, but Gabriel's tone was firm. "All right," she conceded. "But hurry." In less than 10 minutes, Gabriel appeared at her door, clearly worried. The rain was still falling heavily, but he didn't seem to mind. They got into his car and drove towards the hospital in silence. Gabriel glanced sideways at Valeria, noticing her palpable concern, but he decided not to say anything. He knew words wouldn't do much in that moment. What mattered was simply being present. When they arrived, the medical staff attended to them immediately. Valeria didn't separate from the girls, while Gabriel took care of completing the paperwork and ensuring they received immediate attention. After what seemed like endless hours, the doctor returned with good news. Although Liliana needed observation due to a possible infection, both girls would respond well to treatment. Valeria let out a sigh of relief, but still couldn't completely relax. Gabriel sat beside her in the waiting room, and although his presence was an unexpected support, Valeria couldn't help but think, what if this is only temporary? Can I truly depend on him in the future? That doubt continued to weigh on her mind, even as Liliana showed signs of improvement. "Thanks for coming," Valeria said in a low voice, without looking directly at him. "I don't know how I would have handled this alone." "You don't have to handle it alone," Gabriel responded firmly. "I'm here, Valeria, and I don't plan to leave." That night, while Liliana rested in a hospital bed and Catalina slept on Valeria's lap, Gabriel remained awake, observing them. There was something profoundly transformative in that moment. For the first time, he fully understood the weight of being a father, not just in happy moments but also in challenging ones. The next day, Liliana showed signs of improvement. The doctor explained that the infection had been detected in time and that, with a few days of rest, she would be completely recovered. Valeria, exhausted but relieved, began to prepare things to take the girls back home. Gabriel, as always, was by her side, helping with everything necessary. As they left the hospital, Liliana, still weak but smiling, took Gabriel's hand. "Daddy, are you going to stay with us forever?" she asked innocently. Gabriel stopped for a moment, surprised by the question. He knelt to be at her level and looked into her eyes. "Yes, Liliana. I promise I'll always be here for you and Catalina, no matter what happens." Valeria observed the scene from a few steps back. There was something in Gabriel's sincerity that began to break the barriers she had built around her heart. She couldn't deny that he was doing everything possible to show he had changed, and the girls already saw him as an essential part of their lives. Back in the apartment, Gabriel insisted on staying to ensure the girls were comfortable. Valeria, though reluctant, agreed with a condition. "If you decide to stay, it's because you're truly committed, not just for a day. I need actions, not words." While he prepared soup and played with Catalina, she observed them from a distance, maintaining her guard. Although her relationship with Gabriel remained uncertain territory, she couldn't ignore the positive impact his presence had on the girls. That night, after Liliana and Catalina fell asleep, Gabriel prepared to leave. Before heading out, he stopped at the door and looked at Valeria. "I know you still don't completely trust me, and I understand," he said, "but I want you to know that I'm going to keep being here, no matter what. I won't fail you, Valeria, not this time." Valeria looked at him for a moment, considering his words. Finally, she nodded. "You're doing well, Gabriel, but there's still much to prove." Gabriel smiled, understanding that this small show of trust was a big step. He closed the door behind him, feeling that, little by little, he was earning a place in that family. And although he knew the road would be long, he was willing to walk it to the end. The routine slowly returned to normal in Valeria's home. Liliana recovered quickly from her illness, and Catalina didn't separate from her sister, helping her with her games and schoolwork. However, something had changed profoundly since that hospital experience. Gabriel's presence no longer felt like an intrusion but like a piece that was beginning to fit into their lives. Valeria, though still cautious, watched intently how the girls related to their father. Liliana, with her more open personality, had accepted Gabriel as a paternal figure almost immediately. Catalina, though more reserved, sought him out silently, leaning towards him when she needed support or simply to share a moment of tranquility. One Saturday afternoon, Gabriel arrived at the apartment with a proposal. He carried a large box that instantly piqued the girl's curiosity. "What have you got there, Daddy?" Liliana asked, running towards him with a smile. Gabriel placed the box on the table and smiled mysteriously. "It's a surprise, but only if Mama agrees." Valeria raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms as she observed the scene. "What are you planning, Gabriel?" "It's a family activity," he responded calmly, opening the box to reveal painting materials, brushes, and canvases. "I thought we could spend the day painting together. Liliana always talks about her love for art, and Catalina seems interested too." Valeria couldn't help but smile at the idea. Although she remained cautious, there was nothing wrong with a creative afternoon with the girls. "All right," she said finally, "but I hope you don't plan to make a mess everywhere." "I promise I'll clean up," Gabriel replied, winking at her. The girls cheered excitedly and quickly sat around the table as Gabriel organized the materials. Valeria, at first, stayed to the side, observing how Gabriel patiently explained how to use the brushes and mix the colors. However, the laughter and contagious energy of her daughters eventually drew her in. "Are you going to join us, Mama?" Catalina asked with a hopeful look. Valeria hesitated for a moment, but finally sat down next to them. "All right, but don't laugh at my drawing." The rest of the afternoon passed amidst laughter, paint smudges, and moments of complicity. Liliana painted a landscape full of bright colors, while Catalina created an enchanted forest filled with flowers and imaginary animals. Gabriel, surprisingly talented, painted a portrait of the girls playing in the park, which drew an exclamation of awe from Liliana. "Daddy, it's beautiful," she said, hugging him enthusiastically. Valeria, for her part, painted an abstract scene that represented a sunset. Although she didn't say it aloud, there was something therapeutic about letting the colors flow, as if her emotions were being poured onto the canvas. When they finished, Gabriel helped clean up while the girls proudly showed off their creations. Valeria observed Gabriel from the kitchen, feeling something she hadn't allowed herself to feel before: gratitude. His constant presence, his patience with the girls, and his genuine effort to be involved were beginning to dismantle the barriers she had built over so many years. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Valeria and Gabriel sat together on the sofa. There was a comfortable silence between them, finally broken by Valeria. "Thank you for today," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "The girls were happy, and I was happy." Gabriel looked at her with a smile, feeling his efforts were paying off. "Me too. You don't know how much it means to me to be here with you all." Valeria observed him for a moment, allowing herself to lower her guard a little more. "Gabriel, I know I haven't always been fair to you," she said, "but I hope you understand why. I've been alone with the girls for a long time, and learning to trust you isn't something I can do overnight." "I understand," he responded with sincerity, "and I don't expect you to. I just want you to know I'm here to stay, no matter what." Valeria nodded, letting his words sink in. Although there was still a long way to go, she felt they were moving towards something different, something better. "Gabriel," she said after a moment, looking into his eyes, "I don't know what will happen in the future, but I'm willing to try, for Liliana, for Catalina, and maybe, just maybe, for us too." Gabriel took her hand carefully, as if not wanting to break the fragile connection they were building. "That's all I need, Valeria, a chance." That night, as Valeria settled into her bed, she felt a slight peace she hadn't experienced in years. Although she couldn't predict the future, for the first time in a long time, she had hope. Gabriel had shown he was willing to fight for them, and Valeria was beginning to believe that, perhaps, they could build something solid together. The new beginning wasn't free of challenges, but in that moment, it seemed possible, and for Valeria, that was enough. The morning sun began to streak through wide windows, illuminating the organized chaos of breakfast in the Serrano household. 5 years had passed since Gabriel and Valeria had truly reconnected, and their family had settled into rhythms that somehow accommodated both stability and adventure. "Mama, Leo hid my math homework again." Liliana, now 14 and navigating the complexities of adolescence with artistic flair, stormed into the kitchen with accusation in her eyes. Did not, Leo defended, milk dribbling down his chin as he clutched his cereal spoon. At 6 years old, he had inherited his mother's determined spirit and his father's mischievous smile, a combination that proved equally charming and challenging. Peace, you two, Valeria warned, expertly balancing a squirming toddler on her hip while flipping pancakes with her free hand. 3-year-old Sophia, their unexpected blessing, had arrived exactly 9 months after a particularly romantic getaway to the Canary Islands. Gabriel entered from his home office, immediately divining the situation. Liliana, check your tablet case. Leo, if you took her homework, now's the time to confess. Leo's guilty look told the whole story. Why? Liliana groaned, throwing her hands up dramatically. She said my drawings were babyish, Leo mumbled, kicking the chair leg. So you hid her algebra? Gabriel raised an eyebrow, a playful glint in his eye. Interesting revenge strategy. Liliana triumphantly retrieved her crumpled homework from behind the bookshelf where Leo had stashed it. You're such a pain. Enough, Valeria said firmly. Liliana, apologize for criticizing your brother's art. Leo, apologize for taking her homework. Then everyone sits down for breakfast or you'll all be late. The children complied with minimal grumbling, a testament to Valeria's quietly authoritative parenting. As the family settled around the table, Gabriel caught her eye across the noisy breakfast scene, his expression conveying silent appreciation for the beautiful, chaotic life they'd built together. Their home in Madrid, a spacious apartment not far from the vibrant neighborhood of their first reconnection, perfectly reflected their blended priorities. Gabriel's sleek modern furniture coexisted with Valeria's handcrafted pieces. Liliana's artwork hung alongside valuable paintings collected during their travels. It was chaotic and mismatched, yet somehow harmonious, like their family itself. Big day today, Gabriel reminded everyone, buttering toast for Sophia. Mama's interview with Gastronomia magazine, and afterward we need to finalize our new country house renovations. Valeria nodded, momentarily lost in thought. The past 5 years had transformed both their professional lives. Her small artisan bakery had grown into a respected brand with several locations across Spain, each preserving traditional methods while training local women in the culinary arts. The business model had attracted international attention for its combination of quality, authenticity, and social impact. Gabriel's business empire had evolved too, focusing exclusively on properties that celebrated and sustained local culture. Their partnership, personal and professional, had created something neither could have achieved alone. Earth to Mama, Liliana teased, waving her hand. Are you nervous about the interview? A little, Valeria admitted. It's strange to be considered an authority on anything. You were always an authority, Gabriel countered, his smile warm. The world just finally noticed. After breakfast, organized chaos evolved into the morning departure ritual. Gabriel would drop Liliana at her art-focused secondary school and Leo at primary before heading to his office. Valeria worked from home most mornings, developing recipes and managing operations with Sophia's help, before joining Gabriel at their shared headquarters in the afternoon. Everyone has their project for tonight, Valeria confirmed as they gathered backpacks and briefcases. The family was preparing their annual tradition, a bound collection of drawings, photographs, and written memories from the past year. The project had started as Liliana's gift for her parents' first anniversary and evolved into a cherished family ritual. I finished mine last night, Liliana announced proudly. It's my best one yet. Mine has dinosaurs, Leo stated, as if this clearly made his contributions superior. Sophia drew too, their toddler insisted, not to be left out. And I'm sure they're all wonderful, Valeria assured them, kissing each child goodbye. When she reached Gabriel, their kiss lingered a moment longer, still carrying the spark that had ignited on that first airport encounter years ago. I'll see you at the interview, he promised. The meeting with the Rodriguez family shouldn't run long. Sofia Rodriguez's family? Valeria asked with raised eyebrows. Time had softened many rough edges, but some names still carried history. Her brother, Gabriel clarified. He's nothing like her. He actually approached us about adapting our social impact model for their properties. Valeria nodded, appreciating how life sometimes came full circle in unexpected ways. Later that afternoon, as the magazine photographer arranged Valeria and Gabriel in the original bakery for photos, she felt a strange sense of displacement. The humble space where she'd once feared losing everything had become just one small part of their expanding ventures. Yet the heart of it, her grandmother's recipes, the commitment to quality, the feeling of home, remained unchanged. One last question, the interviewer said. You two have built something remarkable together. What's your secret? Valeria and Gabriel exchanged glances, a world of private understanding passing between them. Understanding that success means different things to different people, Valeria offered. I never wanted an empire. I wanted security for my children and to honor my grandmother's legacy. And I had the empire, but not the purpose, Gabriel added, his gaze fixed on Valeria. Valeria taught me that true wealth isn't measured in properties or profits. It's measured in moments like these, with the people you love. That evening, after the children were finally settled, Valeria and Gabriel retreated to their balcony with glasses of wine. The Madrid skyline glittered before them, a view Gabriel once would have seen only in terms of real estate potential, but now appreciated simply for its breathtaking beauty. I found something today, he said, pulling a small, elegant envelope from his pocket. Cleaning out the old files in preparation for the country house trip, Valeria opened it to find their original boarding passes from that first airport encounter, carefully preserved. You kept these? She whispered, touched. Of course, Gabriel said softly. The day everything changed. Valeria leaned against him, reflecting on the journey from that moment to this one. There had been challenges. Merging their businesses, navigating parenting decisions, balancing ambition with family needs. Yet somehow, the foundation built in those early days, trust slowly earned, respect freely given, had weathered every storm. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't been in that airport terminal that day? She asked. Sometimes, Gabriel admitted. But then I remember something my grandmother used to say, that souls meant to find each other will always find a way. From inside came the sound of Liliana's music, mingling with Leo's chatter as the older children finished their projects for the family album. Sophia had long since fallen asleep, her tiny contribution, mostly colorful scribbles, already safely stored in Valeria's desk. They're good kids, Gabriel said quietly. All of them. They are, Valeria agreed. Complicated and messy, and completely perfect. As night deepened around them, they remained on the balcony, fingers intertwined, occasionally sharing observations or plans for the future. The comfortable silence between such moments spoke of a relationship that had moved beyond the need for constant reassurance. In 5 years, they had built more than businesses or homes. They had created a family bound not by obligation but by choice, each day choosing again to love, to forgive, to grow together rather than apart. And it had all begun with a simple act of a businessman walking through an airport, two small, identical faces, and a mother's fierce protection, leading to a love story neither could have imagined. As the city lights twinkled below them, Valeria raised her glass in a silent toast to unexpected encounters and found dreams, to families created rather than merely born, and to the beautiful certainty that the best chapters of their story were still waiting to be written. If the story touched your heart, if you saw a part of yourself in Valeria's strength or Gabriel's quiet transformation, then know this, we all deserve a second chance. Not the kind that's given in pity, but the kind that's built with trust, effort, and unconditional love. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing one person can say to another is not, I'll save you, but, I see you and I'm staying. Thank you for spending time with us. If you believe in stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that love often begins in the quietest places, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is where hearts come home. We'll see you in the next story.